Hi everyone, welcome back to my educational channel, Middle School Math. Today we're going to take the second lesson on this channel, which is the meaning of ratio. So the meaning of ratio is a very important lesson to know because ratio, you are going to use ratio all the time in your life. So a ratio is a way of comparing between two quantities by division. So as you can see here, it says a ratio is a way of comparing between two quantities by division. So if we have a quantity here and a quantity here and we compared both of them by division, this is called a ratio. So example number 1. So here we have Majid wanted to paint a wall. Using a light blue paint, to get the color of this paint, he mixed 3 kilograms of white paint to 4 kilograms of the blue paint. So the ratio of the white paint to the blue paint is 3:4, which means that for every 3 parts of white paint, he needs 4 parts of the blue paint. So here we have 3 and here we have 4. What does that exactly mean again? Because this sounds a little bit confusing. So I'm gonna make it a little bit easier on you guys here. So Majid wanted to paint his wall light blue, right? But he doesn't have the light blue, and he just can't find it in the store. So he bought some white paint and some blue paint, and he wanted to make some 3 kilograms of the white paint to 4 kilograms of the blue paint, so he can make the light blue paint of the degree he wants. So this means that he needs 3 parts of the white paint for every 4 parts of the white paint. And as you can see here, we have 1, 2, 3 parts of the white paint and 1, 2, 3, 4 parts of the blue paint. So for every 3 white paint parts, he needs not forget them. So you can write this ratio in 3 different ways. So you can write the ratio of 3:4 in 3 different ways. We can just write 3:4 as written words. We can write it 3/4 as a fraction, and we can write it 3:4 another fraction. And as you can see, we use here these 2 dots that that there is one over the other to say 3:4 here, and these 2 dots are read as 2. And most of the time while talking about ratios, we use this 2 sign. So the numbers 3 and 4 are the terms of the ratio. So we know a term of something is the thing that belongs to this something. So 3 and 4 are the numbers that belong to this ratio. So this means that they are the terms of this ratio. So the order of terms in the ratio is important. So what does that mean? So if I have 3:4 here, if I wrote 4, 2, I'm not sure if you can see it, 4:3, this would be wrong because now I have compared 4 of the white paint to 3 of the blue paint instead of saying 3 of the white paint and 4 of the blue paint. So here, while dealing with ratios, the order of terms is very, very important. So the ratio of the blue paint to the white paint is now 4:3, or 4/3, or 4:3. So now this means that the blue paint is 4 and the white paint 3, while the white paint was 3 and the blue paint was 4. So this means you have to write it correctly. So 4:3 here is wrong, but 3:4 here is right. And this tells us that ratio of 2 numbers. So now we understood what ratio is, and now we're going to talk about ratio of 2 numbers. I hope you can see it here. I'm just coloring it with blue. Ratio of 2 numbers. So the ratio of 2 numbers will equal what? So we need a formula to figure out the ratio. So the formula we usually use to figure out the ratio is this formula over here, which says the first number over the second number. So what does that mean? So for example here, the ratio of 5 and 3, he will give us the numbers. So the ratio between 5 and 3, these are the numbers, is 5 over 3. So we said the first number first and then the second number at the bottom. So the first number will be the numerator and the second number will be the denominator. So 5 is the first number here, so it's gonna be up here in the numerator part, while 3 is the second number, so it's gonna be the second number here in the fraction, which is gonna be the denominator. So 5 is the first term, and we call the first term antecedent, and 3 is the second term, and we call the second term consequent. So it might be a little hard to just put the terms in your mind, but it's going to be really easy when you practice it a little bit more. So first term is called antecedent, and third term and the second term, sorry, is called consequent. So we can say here, instead of the first term and the second term, we can say antecedent over consequent. Here we have another example to solve together to understand the term of the ratio a little bit more. So in the opposite figure, as you can see here, there are 3 red apples. So let us just count them here. We have 1 apple red, 2 apple red, and 3 apple red. So we have 3 red apples and 2 green apples. So let me change the color. And we have 2 green apples. Here's 1 and here's 2. So we have 2 green apples and 3 red apples. So write each ratio in all 3 forms. What are the 3 forms? The form of a fraction, the form of the 2 sign, and the form of writing the word 2. So we need to write in the 3 forms that are listed here. So we need to write in the 2 form as a sign, we need to write in the 2 form as a written letter, as a written word, and we need to write in the form of a fraction. So the number of red apples to the number of green apples. So to solve this here, we need to, let me just use my pen. So there's just some problems changing the pen. So to solve this here, we need to figure out the number of red apples, which is 3, and the number of green apples, which is 2. And remember, the formula is the antecedent over the consequent. And the antecedent is the first term that he tells us, which is the red apples here, and the consequent is the second term he tells us about, which is the green apples. So what we're going to do is we're going to write it as a fraction. So let's see what is gonna happen. So the antecedent is red apples and they are 3, so we have 3. And the consequent is the green apples and they are 2, so we have 2. This is the first form, which is the fraction form. The second form is we're using the word 2. And the third form is using the sign of. So here we have the solution of the rest of them. So the first one we have solved it right, which is 3 over 2. It's written as 3 over 2 as a fraction, 3 to 2 as a word, and 3 to 2 as a number. As you can see, green apples are 2 and red apples are 3. So for the second one here, he wants the number of green apples now over the number of red apples, as you can see. So green apples we have 2, so we'll put 2 first on the antecedent, and on the consequent we put 3 as red apples. And we can write it as 2 over 3 as a fraction, 2 to 3 as a written letter in between all the 2 and the 3, and 2 to 3 as a form of the sign 2. So the other example here, it said the number of green apples to the number of all apples. So this is a little bit tricky because he didn't give us another kind of apple that is in here, but he said number of all apples. We know that we have 2 green apples and we have 3 red apples. So number of all of them are the number of 2 apples, and the 3 apples is going to be 5 apples. So the sum of all of them is going to be 5. This is the all. So now the green apples are 2, correct? And the number of all apples is 5. So 2 over 5, we can write it as a fraction, we can write it as a word, and we can write it as a sign. So now we have the number of green apples over the number of all apples. So the last one here says the number of red apples to the number of all apples is the same, but instead of green apples at the antecedent part at the top, we have red apples as the antecedent part on the top. So the red apples are. I really want you to notice some stuff here while doing this, so you just don't have some problems doing it and understand it a little bit better. So number of green apples is 2, right? And the number of red apples is 3, and we want to find the ratio between the number of green apples to the red apples. We put 2 over 3. That is correct. Or we can write it 2 over 3 using the sign, or we can write it 2 to 3 using the word. So this means, what does this exactly mean? What does ratio exactly mean here? 2 over 3 or 2 to 3. What does that exactly mean? This means that the number of green apples, which came first here, will equal the fraction that we have figured out to the number of the other term. So what does that exactly mean again? I'm not very sure. What are you saying, miss, here? So the number of green apples, we take the antecedent, the first term, and then we take the second term, which is the consequent, and we put them like this, and there is an equal sign in the center here, and then we have the fraction that we have just figured out, and we put it in the center, and we multiplied it by the second term, which is the consequent. So this means that the number of green apples will equal. So we have reached the end of the lesson, and I have some try these for you guys, so you can try solving these by yourselves. It's very easy and very basic as the ratio. And the second video is going to be called it's going to be about proportion and the properties of proportions and ratios, and it is kind of continuing to the ratio video. So I hope you enjoy